The story begins with a warrior falling in the midst of an intense battle. A man with white hair appears, emanating a powerful aura. He seems ready to fight with everything he has. Baek Mujiol is the name of that warrior, known as the rising star of martial souls. Asura, the celestial demon, emerges for a fight that promises to be epic. It seemed the battle between them was just beginning. A mysterious leader with a long beard and dark clothes appeared to be very observant, with a face that suggested he was planning something. Two men with swords were clashing. It seemed to be a deeply personal fight, and they were extremely tense. The earlier leader exuded confidence even when alone. He was feared and admired by others, which filled him with pride. The cold face of a warrior was injured, with blood dripping down. A cult leader was both revered and feared. Everyone risked their lives for him as though he were a true demon to those who followed him. The man with white hair appeared and asked for his opponent's last words. It seemed the battle was nearing its intense end. The cult leader was badly wounded but laughed at the situation. The young man thought the leader's spirit would make a good story for heroic tales. He felt superior to him at that moment of battle. He was contemplating how he would torture the cult leader before killing him. He didn't want to end the fight too quickly. He wanted to savor every moment. The cult leader challenged the celestial demon Asura, declaring that his cruelty would end that day. But at that moment, the cult leader begged for mercy. He pleaded for his life as if his pride had been cast aside. Baek Mujiol appeared with his sword and a cold gaze, full of determination. The white-haired boy asked if he was hallucinating. He seemed unable to believe what was happening or the situation he was in. The man said his opponent was the celestial demon Asura, and that he couldn't show mercy. He would have to defeat him to survive. The demon felt he hadn't been desperate enough, so he tried once more to escape death, pleading for another chance. Baek Mujiol grew angry with the situation, ready to use everything he had to end the fight. The cult leader said he would hide in the mountains. He was scared and wanted to flee to avoid further danger. The boy was shocked by the cult leader's attitude. He hadn't expected him to be a coward, and the fight seemed impossible for him at that moment. The man declared he would become a hero. He planned to use the battle to gain fame and recognition and couldn't wait to start executing his plans. His brother said he would use sound transmission to maintain appearances, but it didn't seem like he could keep it up for long. The cult leader was destined to die that day. He thought he wouldn't survive the fight, but was still trying to find a way out of his predicament. The warrior appeared extremely irritated. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The leader was still alive. He was losing control of the situation. It seemed a very quick fight had occurred in a single move. Baek Mujiol was dead. The leader had won. Time passed and 22 years went by. Everything had changed. The place once filled with darkness and evil had transformed into a place of peace. The demon with his strength had destroyed his opponent and was certain he had won the battle. However, his opponent hadn't given up yet. The leader wondered why the boy hadn't used his full power in that fight. He was deeply curious about what had happened that day. The old man protected the new generation. He observed everything to ensure no one got hurt, aiming to train a new hero with wisdom. He said he worried too much about power. He shared that his 3 sons had fought to be the cult's successor, causing many problems. He revealed that all of his sons were dead. He wanted to create a strong new leader who wouldn't repeat the same mistakes and had to manage everything on his own. The leader introduced his youngest son, Yugang, the next leader of the cult. He was confident the boy would surpass all others. He said the boy had been raised differently so he wouldn't be blinded by power and strength. He had plans for his son's future. The leader mentioned he had taken many precautions to ensure the boy became the strongest cult leader. He had high expectations for this. The leader reassured him that he was fine and that he didn't need to worry. The boy was very humble and concerned about his father and family. Other cult members declared that the son would be the next leader and that he was a descendant of the celestial demon. They were all very proud and happy. The young man held a scroll. He seemed quite mysterious and was planning something grand. He couldn't wait to show his power. A shelf full of ancient books appeared in the scene. It seemed to be a secluded place filled with wisdom, marking the beginning of a new phase. Someone picked up a brush and began writing on paper. It was the start of a story or an account of an important event, a moment of reflection. The young cult leader was writing something at his desk. He appeared very focused and thoughtful, embodying an intelligent leader. The boy heard someone approaching and asked who it was. What would he discover? There was a mystery awaiting him. Sang Sagic bowed to the young cult leader. He was a torture specialist and seemed like a dangerous man with his methods. The torture specialist reported on the progress of a torture carried out on his master's orders. He seemed to take great pleasure in his work. The leader's son suspected his father was testing him. He had a mysterious look as if he enjoyed all of it. A criminal had been tortured in a prison for 3 days. He appeared to have suffered immensely during this time. His condition was critical. On the first day, the criminal's skin was flayed, and he was placed in salt water. It was a horrific torture, and he suffered greatly. On the second day, a pig ate the criminal's legs. His pain seemed endless, and his situation grew increasingly desperate. The cult leader thought he was the only one capable of torturing someone like this. He felt satisfaction in others' suffering. The young man screamed that it wasn't enough. He wanted to see more pain and suffering, showing no mercy to anyone. The cult leader declared he would use even more brutal tortures. He seemed excited by the idea, motivated by the suffering of others. A door opened, and it seemed someone was about to enter. The tension was palpable, and curiosity grew over what would happen next. Yugang was staring at a door, appearing to wait for someone to enter. It seemed seemed like a trap, and he was the predator. He seemed to have spoken without thinking and regretted it. He was scolding himself for his words and actions. The young man was incredulous at what he had just heard. He was angry at the cult members who were so cruel. The boy saw a piece of paper that stated he wasn't a good leader. He felt very frustrated with his current situation. He was upset because he couldn't talk to anyone, and the situation seemed to be getting worse. He was alone. He said he just wanted a normal life but couldn't have one. He was very frustrated with the situation, feeling misunderstood by everyone. Someone asked where the cult leader had gone, and he said he had gone to get rid of some trash he found. It was a cryptic response. People were shocked, thinking he had disposed of something from an orthodox sect. They were filled with fear and curiosity. One member said he had done the right thing. They were following the cult's principles strictly and lacked individual opinions. The cult leader explained he had only picked up trash from the street. He disliked the cult and seemed not to want to be there. The cult leader admitted that living a normal life in the current pace of the cult was impossible. He needed to speak with his father about his situation. He wanted to resolve the issue before being forced to take his father's place. He feared the future and desired freedom. He heard someone calling him and was startled. He was trying to understand what was happening, sensing a tense situation. The elder of the cult, Somian Magan, was always smiling. People revered and feared him. Somian Magan reported that the cult leader was in critical condition. His serious expression suggested something grave had happened. The cult leader was shocked by the news about his father. He couldn't believe what he had just heard and was desperate. The young man was surprised by something and seemed to have discovered something unexpected. His face was serious and worried. The boy carried a portrait of his father, heading somewhere with others following him. Perhaps it was for a funeral or burial. He remained alone, staring at the portrait, looking very sad and lost, unable to understand what was happening. He felt utterly miserable. The cult leader was in shock. He questioned how everything had ended up like this, appearing deeply shaken. Suddenly, the cult leader became very angry. It seemed he shouted out of rage and despair, overwhelmed by everything. He ran to his father's room to find out what had happened. He was distressed and afraid of the news, desperate for answers. One of the elders said the father's injuries had worsened, and he wouldn't hold on much longer. He was very ill, and there was no hope left. The father asked if Yugang was there. He was almost too weak to speak, and the situation seemed very grave. The young man told him to save his strength. He was struggling to talk as if he didn't want to hear anything else. The old man told his son he would become the new leader of the cult. It was a very sorrowful moment, and he seemed on the brink of death. Yugang cried out in desperation. He didn't want to believe what was happening, and it seemed something within him had changed. He placed his hand on the door as if he was about to go somewhere, perhaps searching for answers about what was going on. He wondered if he could avoid becoming a demonic leader, as though he was battling against a terrible destiny. The young man started walking, seemingly in a hurry with a stern expression. He was heading somewhere else. His eyes turned red, appearing sinister. Perhaps he was beginning to lose control of the situation. He asked who the stranger was in his quarters. It seemed someone was following him, shrouding everything in mystery. The leader asked again who it was, sounding angry and suspicious. He urgently needed answers about everything. The other person struck him at a pressure point, suggesting he was fighting someone very strong and skilled. The young man was kicked squarely and the battle began. He seemed to be fighting with all of his strength to escape the situation. He couldn't move and needed to call for help. It seemed he was in dire trouble and the situation was critical. He needed to get out of there. Yugang was being attacked from all sides, surrounded by very strong and determined warriors. The boy was in shock, seemingly unsure of what to do, while the others shouted that he had to kill him. One of them declared that whoever eliminated Yugang would be richly rewarded. Everyone seemed to agree, ready to attack. The assassins launched themselves at the young man with everything they had. It seemed he wouldn't have a chance to escape so many enemies at once. One warrior said they would escape the cult with the leader, determined to protect him at all costs. The enemies were defeated by a stranger who appeared badly injured and covered in blood after a brutal battle. Yugang was amazed. He hadn't expected to defeat so many elite warriors so easily using only his own strength. One of the warriors shouted at Yugang and tried to attack. He seemed blinded by rage after everything that had happened. The warrior attempted another attack, but Yugang was faster and managed to defeat him again using only his fists. The warrior couldn't believe he had been defeated so easily and seemed desperate about the result of the fight. He had no strength left. Yugang appeared mysterious under the moonlight. He seemed ready to face whatever came his way with great determination. He was falling from a great height, as though he had been defeated by someone very strong and powerful. He was in trouble. An assassin screamed furiously. He couldn't believe the young man had escaped and was very angry about it, demanding answers. Somian Magan ordered the warriors to stop. He appeared calm and very confident, knowing exactly what he was doing with each step. A warrior said that if they let Yugang escape, they would pay the price. He seemed very worried and angry. Bupiang Guiyang also shouted that they would pursue Yugang immediately. It seemed the chase was endless, and the battle continued. One of the warriors thought they could kill Yugang whenever they wanted, as if they were invincible and extremely powerful. Poong Cheon introduced the grand plan of the celestial demon Asura, as if he were the central character of the entire story. The warrior assured that they wouldn't lose Yugang. He appeared very confident that they would catch him again quickly and defeat him. He ordered the bodies to be disposed of, and the elders to be gathered because the ceremony of the leader's ascension was about to begin. Yugang was thrown high into the air, appearing injured. He couldn't escape the attack of his very strong enemy. A whole day had passed, and the young man asked who was doing this to him. He seemed very confused and irritated. The mysterious warrior said they would arrive in Shaanxi soon. It seemed they were heading to an important place. One of the enemies charged forward and stomped heavily on the ground, seemingly heading to meet someone or something at that location. The protagonist said he would release the other's acupressure points, appearing knowledgeable about how to heal him using his skills. The leader wondered if he was finally free. It seemed he had been trapped somewhere and had finally managed to escape. The warrior said he was created to assist the cult leader. He appeared very loyal to his leader and ready to follow any command. He introduced himself as Poong Cheon, and it seemed that he was very strong and had an important role in the entire story. The young man asked if Somyeon Magan was the one who led the rebellion, as though he wanted to know who was behind all of it. Poong Cheon confirmed that Somyeon Magan led the rebellion, appearing to provide answers to Yuming's questions. Yugang said he understood. It seemed he had grasped everything that was happening and now knew what to do. He remembered Somyeon Magan being loyal to him in the past, as if reflecting on how much things had changed over time. He also recalled another happy moment they had shared together, indicating he held many good memories with Somyeon Magan. Somyeon Magan appeared grateful for something, looking very happy as though he had achieved something significant. A mysterious voice said that he had betrayed him, suggesting something bad was about to happen and that he had become an enemy. The young man said it was perfect and seemed to be planning something. His red eyes were sinister and full of malice. He decided to leave the cult life behind and live in peace, but his smile was unsettling, hinting at hidden schemes. He said, however, that something would change, implying his plans wouldn't be so easy to execute, and he was suspicious. Poong Cheon believed the leader was a problem and wanted to deal with him. It seemed he was afraid of him and didn't know what to do. The protagonist said Poong Cheon had chosen the wrong person to devote himself to, as Somyeon Magan was now the cult leader and he could leave. The warrior stated that the cult leaders were neither the celestial demon Asura nor his master, and asked Yugang to withdraw his order. Yugang was very angry, thinking Poong Cheon was killing him for fun, and said it would be worse if he didn't obey. The young man ordered Poong Cheon to leave, and it seemed he was using a dark power that terrified the other characters. The protagonist screamed in pain after being struck by Poong Cheon. He appeared to be suffering greatly from this power. The young man was thrown far away, appearing seriously injured after receiving the old man's dark power. He said he would punish himself for it and began to hit himself, as though he feared disobeying his superior. Another character told him to stop hitting himself. He was acting absurdly, and she seemed unable to take it anymore. Yugang was startled and said his father had created something very strange. He appeared confused about the warrior's power. The boy asked the warrior what he thought he was doing, demanding he apologize and admit he had lost control. The bandit leader shouted that the bastard had tired of living and ordered everyone to attack, showing no fear. The assassins attacked with everything they had, and a large blue magic swept over Yugang. He was in danger of being hit. Poong Cheon said he had warned them and was very serious, appearing ready to fight them all. He attacked with all of his might using red magic, looking furious and intent on ending everything. The bandit leader asked if that was a wall of swords and ordered everyone to retreat, realizing that this guy was no fool. He was grabbed from behind, his head held tightly. He was scared and unsure of what was going to happen. The warrior was extremely strong, and it seemed he was going to finish off the leader. His appearance was terrifying. Yugang shouted for him not to kill people unnecessarily. He was very concerned and wanted to avoid further problems. The old man said he didn't kill the leader and restrained him to calm him down, leaving everyone shocked and confused. The warrior said his master was tired and that they should take him to his hideout. Everyone realized he was still alive. The young man was very surprised. He had truly encountered a madman and was afraid of what he might do. The Verdant Forest residence was an imposing structure, resembling an ancient and grand palace. Poong Cheon entered by kicking the door down, appearing very strong and filled with rage about something. He saw people watching him from afar. They seemed to be the guards of the place, and he was curious about the situation. The warrior complained, saying the place looked like a stable. He didn't like what he saw and expressed his disdain. The master apologized to everyone, bowing to show respect to those present, leaving them all intrigued. The young man apologized for arriving late at night. He didn't want to cause trouble and was very polite. Yugang's eyes glowed red, indicating he had a hidden power he was now releasing. He was impressed by a beautiful woman with long hair, wondering who she might be. The bandit leader wondered if that woman was an angel because of her stunning beauty, which captivated him. The leader was shocked, questioning what such a beautiful woman was doing in that place. He believed she was a hostage of the bandits. Yugang said they needed to rescue that woman at all costs, and Poong Cheon responded affirmatively, determined to do so. The woman said it was a beautiful night, calm and serene, as if there were no problems or worries. She mentioned that she would like to know where those two had come from and seemed very curious and interested in them. Then she asked again, directly and without any filter, where the two of them were from. She appeared very annoyed. The girl repeated the question, once more directly, clearly wanting answers. The young man was shocked by the woman's words and didn't understand what was happening. He was very confused. Poong Cheon became angry and called the woman rude. He was visibly irritated by what she had said. The woman told him to shut up and die, using a very powerful blue magic. She wasn't playing around. The warrior advanced to attack her. He grabbed his sword and prepared to strike the woman, looking very serious and upset by the whole situation. He attacked with his sword, channeling a very strong and swift blue magic. He was determined to win. He leaped into the air and used his sword with even more powerful blue magic that seemed to slice through the air, creating a loud explosion. With anger, the warrior struck with his sword, unleashing a very strong and swift blue magic. He wasn't joking around. He prepared a powerful strike with his sword, and the blue magic swirled in the area. He was undeniably strong and skilled. Poong Cheon generated a whirlwind of energy and attacked the girl. He was immensely powerful and determined to end it all. The woman was frightened by the force of Poong Cheon's attack and didn't know what to do. She was in danger. She fell to the ground after being hit, injured, and afraid of this man. The warrior struck the ground with immense power, causing an explosion of blue energy that was very strong and terrifying. She lay on the ground after the attack, the area around her destroyed. She seemed hurt and exhausted. The woman, furious, cursed the warrior with all her might. She was enraged and full of hatred toward him. Poong Cheon grabbed the woman's head and declared that she had lost the fight. He was confident in his victory. The woman laughed and asked if Poong Cheon really thought she had lost. She was confident and ready to fight back. A bandit arrived and ordered the man to take his hands off the woman. He didn't like the situation and intended to interfere. He threatened that the man's head would roll on the ground if he didn't release the woman. He was serious and angry. The warrior was shocked by the man's boldness. He hadn't expected anyone to challenge him and was left speechless. The woman laughed in Poong Cheon's face, calling him a second-rate warrior and saying he'd soon see the leader's brain exposed. Everyone began laughing at the situation, but shortly after, they attacked the man with great force and determination, showing they were not fooling around. The young man struck the henchman with a blow. The henchmen were terrified by the strike and began screaming, scared of what might happen next. The person and his henchmen attacked the area and quickly fled, moving with speed and danger during their escape. A leg kicked forcefully, and the impact was so intense it shook the area. He was visibly furious. The person appeared with several blades, claiming they weren't anything special. He was confident and ready to attack again. The old man was impressed by the protagonist's skill. He remarked that his strike was impressive and his power undeniable. The young man said the warrior hadn't obeyed the orders to apologize and was very angry and furious with him. Poong Cheon admitted he had disobeyed the cult leader's orders, showing no concern for the consequences. The warrior declared he would pay for his failure, advancing and attempting to strike the man with all his might once again. The woman commented that the two were worse than the bandits, but despite not retreating, had put on quite a show for her. Others and the person grew serious, staring at each other to analyze the situation. They were very tense in that moment. The old man clenched his fist tightly, glaring at the person. He was furious and ready to fight again. A tower shone brightly in the night as someone screamed in anger. The situation had become extremely tense and dangerous. The young man was relaxing at bath, appearing lost in thought of the previous day's events. He seemed tired. Yugang thought that Janghu was an unpredictable place and that anything could happen on an ordinary day. He appeared confused. The leader recalled the woman and wondered who that young lady he had just met was. He seemed curious. Yugang declared he was tired of the situation and never wanted to see that woman again. He said it had been hell and was visibly irritated. The leader stepped out of the bath, appearing deep in thought about the woman. He couldn't get her image out of his head and wanted to resolve this soon. The young man commented that a lot had happened in just one night and all he wanted was to rest. He couldn't wait to relax. The woman, surprised to have offered the room, sarcastically hoped she wouldn't wake up feeling well. She seemed to be plotting something. The young man was observing everything from afar and didn't seem pleased with what he saw. He looked very serious. Yugang noticed a landscape painting, aromatic candles, and a soft bed. He appeared thoughtful and curious. The young man was overjoyed to have a soft bed. He was jumping with excitement because he loved comfortable and cozy beds. The leader touched the bed and asked what it was, curious about the unfamiliar sensation. Yugang and the woman were startled by something that had just happened. Her face showed fear, and he seemed incredulous. Yugang shouted for the warrior and asked where he was. The situation was very confusing, and he didn't understand what was happening. The leader demanded to know how Poong Cheon dared to do that to the lady. He was furious about the situation. Yugang asked if Poong Cheon liked her and accused him of being a traitor. The warrior's face was grim. The woman shouted, furious that Poong Cheon had done what she was thinking. She was very angry and demanded answers. The woman declared she was finally free, overjoyed to have escaped the bad situation. The young man introduced himself as Yugang and apologized. He politely asked for the young woman's name, curious to know. The woman replied that her name was Sun Yakran and asked if he was the son of a noble. She seemed very direct and curious. The girl kept cursing as the young man pulled his sheet, complaining he was tired and just wanted to sleep. He was stressed. Sun Yakran remarked that he was being too direct and that she was a lady. Her comment startled him, leaving him shocked. She teased him, saying he had a decent face but was avoiding the topic too much, mocking him by suggesting he was impotent. Yugang was infuriated by the woman's provocation and grew increasingly angry. His patience with her was wearing thin. The woman taunted him, saying he had fallen for her provocation and that everything was going according to her plan. She seemed to be enjoying the situation. She planned to kill the young man when he let his guard down. Her sinister gaze revealed she had a dangerous plan. Yakan clasped her hands together and began laughing, clearly scheming something dangerous and devious. Her hands seemed ready to channel some magic. She had a sinister and mysterious look. The girl attacked Yugang from below, yelling that he was calling her impotent. He seemed to be in trouble. Poong Cheon told the young man to move away from him before he got angry. The fight began again with full force. The warrior watched the fight from a distance and felt very happy. He said that was his master and was proud of him. Yugang stood by a waterfall, appearing deep in thought about his problems. He was trying to calm himself and stay composed. The leader declared he wouldn't be able to sleep because of that crazy woman. He felt irritated for having met Yakan and was quite upset. Poong Cheon was introduced as the most dangerous and powerful of them all. He was revealing his true potential in the fight. The young man sat on a rock, replaying his attacks with ease, struggling to cope with the situation. A fish swam peacefully in the river as though nothing had happened there, and life carried on in its normal, tranquil way. The leader threw a knife into the lake, demonstrating his skill with weapons, and everything seemed very calm there. The leader pointed in a direction with his finger while contemplating his next moves. His expression was very serious. He had a plan. The young man wore a thoughtful expression as he observed everything from a distance. He seemed to be planning something significant for the future. He thought that if he stayed in Jiang with his current skills, everything would worsen. He was fearful of his destiny. The knife was lodged in a rock and blood was pouring out. It appeared he had defeated someone very important. Yugang said his father had brought Jiang to its knees and only taught him the silver soul slash. He seemed very disappointed. The young man clenched his fist tightly and wondered why he had to go through all this. He was deeply frustrated and angry about the situation. Yuvang's expression was very serious, and his gaze burned with indescribable fury. He seemed filled with resentment and a thirst for revenge. The leader was hanging upside down, staring at the sky and river with wide eyes. He appeared very startled by everything around him. He struck a tree with all of his strength, and his magic was so powerful that it made everything around him tremble. He was out of control. Then he said the warrior had vanished in an instant and couldn't understand how it had happened. He was very confused. The leader appeared in the middle of the field, hurrying to reach somewhere. His expression was stern and focused. Yugang appeared with his knife, looking ready to fight. His gaze was filled with anger and hatred. The leader was walking, seemingly lost in thought. He had a mysterious and contemplative look about everything. The warrior mentioned that the night was getting colder and suggested they go inside to warm up. He was concerned for his leader. Yugang collapsed to the ground after discovering it was only Poong Cheon. He was confused and wondered how he had disappeared like that. Then he placed his hand on the ground, saying he was so tense he hadn't even noticed. He was struggling to handle the situation. The warrior suggested Poong Cheon sit with him, but Poong Cheon replied that he preferred to stand. He seemed very suspicious. The leader stated he had something to ask and ordered him to sit. His gaze was serious and determined to uncover the truth. Poong Cheon looked at his master with doubt and apprehension in his eyes. He was suspicious and unsure of what would happen. Yugang said his father never let him learn the basic palm techniques and forced him to master only the silver soul slash. He was angry. The leader thought about how his father had appointed him as the leader of the demonic cult and questioned whether this contradiction made sense. He was utterly baffled. Poong Cheon explained that the silver soul slash wasn't a weak martial art and that it possessed deep inner strength. He wanted to help his master. The leader reflected that inner strength alone wouldn't be enough to dominate Jianghu, let alone the demonic cult. He was dissatisfied with this. Yugang demanded to know why his father only allowed him to learn the silver soul slash and insisted on getting an answer. He was very frustrated. Poong Cheon replied that it was because he was destined to become the supreme martial master, but that he still had much to learn. He wanted to teach the leader everything. The leader found this absurd and said he had no idea how he could challenge anyone in Jianghu in his current state. He was very upset and hopeless. Yugang asked for Poong Cheon's opinion, demanding a response. He was desperate to understand why he had only been taught the slash. The warrior replied that what he was looking for didn't exist in the demonic cult, and that his time would come. He was very calm. Yugang was furious with Poong Cheon's answer and called him a wretch. He was out of patience and filled with rage. Poong Cheon suggested they go inside to rest and advised the leader to head to the main base the next morning. He was concerned for his master. Yugang asked what he was talking about and why he should go to the main base. He didn't understand Poong Cheon's plans. The warrior explained that he would go to the main base to begin the conquest of the world. He was very serious and determined in his objectives. The leader was outraged by the warrior's response, retorting that conquering the world was nonsense. He was furious about the situation. Yugang clenched his fist in anger and struck the ground hard. He was deeply frustrated, overwhelmed, and unsure of what to do. He couldn't take it anymore. The leader said he was exhausted and upset, feeling that everything was spiraling out of his control. Yugang declared he didn't want to be the leader of the demonic cult, let alone conquer the world, but he had no choice. He was deeply saddened. The warrior promised to guide his master on the path to becoming the supreme ruler. He had a plan and wanted the young man to trust him. Poong Cheon ordered the leader to follow him, and Yugang became desperate. He cried out for his mother, terrified and lost. The leader was traveling by cart, appearing very confused and thoughtful about everything that happened and what lay ahead. Yugang complained that Poong Cheon didn't care about what he wanted and that they were heading to the main base. He was deeply unhappy with the situation. The leader said he had a question, and Sun Yakan asked why she was in the carriage with him. She was very curious and suspicious. Yugang suggested she ask Poong Cheon, who must have dragged her along. He didn't seem to care much about what was happening. The leader stated he was waiting for an answer, clenching his fist impatiently. He wanted to uncover the truth immediately. The woman angrily asked if he planned to steal her wealth and take her body. The tension in the situation was palpable. Yugang thought that if he was to be the leader of the demonic cult, at the very least, he should be on his level. He felt superior and confident. Yugang said that if he became the next leader of the demonic cult, she could consider her own case. But since she was nothing, he appeared very proud. The warrior asked what happened, and the leader shouted for Poong Cheon. He was angry and demanding answers. Yugang said he couldn't stand the woman any longer and asked to leave her there. He was desperate to get rid of her and was at his limit. The woman became furious upon hearing that, leaped at the leader, and attacked him with all her strength. She was very upset. The cart's wheel kept turning as they continued their journey to some unknown destination. The trip seemed long and mysterious. Poong Cheon was peeking out the door, seemingly observing something happening outside. He appeared curious. Sun Yakan asked if they thought she would marry him just because they had been dragged along together. She was irritated and didn't like the idea. The warrior grabbed Sun Yakan by the neck and demanded to know what happened. He was serious and determined to find out everything. A snail crawled up a leaf on a sunny day. Nature was displaying its beauty and offering a refreshing pause in the story. Poong Cheon said she would make no more noise and had lost her chance to speak. He was serious and determined not to give her any more opportunities. Yugang said the problem wasn't her, but rather himself, and questioned why they were forcing him to do this. He felt extremely pressured. The leader thought that if he said what he wanted, Poong Cheon would slam his head against something, so he asked for forgiveness. He was terrified and afraid. Yugang said he wouldn't let himself be shaken by such exaggeration and would stick to his plan. He was confident he would succeed. Poong Cheon stood in an open area, observing everything. Yugang asked what he was waiting for and whether he wasn't going to apologize. He was irritated. Poong Cheon apologized for his insolence and stated that from now on, he would guide him with the authority of being his teacher. He was redefining their relationship. Yugang found what had happened absurd. He was outraged by the situation, unsure of what would come next, and seemed confused. The leader asked how he was supposed to challenge anyone in Jianghu in his current state and said not to bring up yesterday's events. He was very nervous. Poong Cheon said they should move forward, that there was no time to waste, and that their journey was just beginning. He was confident. A horse's hooves pounded quickly on a dirt road as they sought something or someone, rushing with urgency. Yugang called Poong Cheon a scoundrel and said he would deal with him. He was angry and struggling to control himself. The leader looked at the woman's neck, wondering if he should turn her neck back. He was curious and confused. 2 days later, they arrived at the Lunar Blossom Pavilion. The place was bustling with many people, and the atmosphere was tense. Everyone seemed busy. The leader slammed the table and said he had enough. He was impatient and couldn't take it anymore. He wanted change. Poong Cheon mentioned that at least he had turned her neck back when they arrived and reminded them not to draw unnecessary attention. The warrior was concerned for his leader. The leader saw the food on the table and commented that it had been a long time since he'd eaten anything so good. He was starving and enjoying the feast. Yugang found the waiter suspicious and said he was becoming paranoid from dealing with these lunatics. He felt very confused. The leader said it was time to get to work. He grabbed the waiter by the wrist and told him to wait, looking very suspicious and serious. Poong Cheon asked how long he had worked there, staring at him with a serious and suspicious gaze. He distrusted the man. The waiter replied that he had worked there for 3 years and appeared very nervous about the question. He was apprehensive and scared. The warrior asked if he always got this nervous when serving someone and fixed him with a stern, intimidating look. The situation was very tense. The waiter swallowed hard, visibly nervous and apprehensive. He seemed afraid of what might happen and as though he was hiding something. Yugang asked the warrior what he was doing and said the waiter hadn't done anything wrong. He told him to calm down, clearly out of patience with the situation. The waiter thanked the young master and commented that the woman was so beautiful it was hard not to be impressed. He wanted to please everyone. Sun Yakan laughed, saying he had good taste. She told them they could start eating since she was also starving. She was confident. The leader announced it was lunchtime and that he would eat everything. He was hungry and had a mysterious, unsettling expression. Sun Yakan glared at the food with fury and demanded to know what had happened. She seemed very upset. She accused them of disrespecting her and asked how they could do such a thing. She disliked what was happening to her food and wanted to resolve the issue. She noted that the table next to them received 7 dumplings, while they only got 6. She was furious and wouldn't let it slide, demanding fairness. Yugang and Poong Cheon were calmly looking at their food, eating normally, while the woman yelled and caused a scene. Poong Cheon continued eating peacefully as the woman complained about the number of dumplings. He seemed indifferent to everything around him. The woman demanded to see the manager, declaring she would shut down that ridiculous pigsty. She was serious and determined to end it all. The place seemed enormous and very well decorated, with people calm and going about their activities normally. The scene, however, felt tense and dangerous. Yugang and the warrior were leaving, apologizing as Sun Yakran caused a scene about the food. They were in a hurry to get away. People stared at the woman's neck, wondering if such a thing was even possible. Everyone was confused and curious about the situation. The waiter said they hadn't paid for the food, and the leader glared at him with a hateful look. The situation seemed on the verge of spiraling out of control. The leader shouted angrily, stating they had only been given 6 dumplings, calling it absurd. He was extremely irritated by everything. The scene shifted to the outside, where a house showman the night, appearing mysterious, full of secrets, and surrounded by tense events. The leader of the demonic cult's assassination squad attacked with magic and asked if the waiter was conspiring. He appeared very powerful. The waiter begged for forgiveness after being attacked by the squad leader. He was in shock, deeply frightened, and in serious trouble. Hook Shimsu, the squad leader, remarked that he hadn't expected the woman to overturn the table. He was surprised and apprehensive. Hook Shimsu pleaded for another chance, desperate to survive and unwilling to die. Known as the Child, Hook Shimsu seemed to be the uncle of the demonic cult leader. He was nothing like people expected, vastly different from their assumptions. With a serious expression, Hook Shimsu commented that he couldn't get used to his own face. He seemed both angry and confused. Though Hook Shimsu had the face of a child, he was over 60 years old. His appearance was terrifying, exuding great power and a sinister aura. It was said Hook Shimsu's condition resulted from a curse placed on him for eating human flesh as a child, a punishment for his sins. Hook Shimsu thought that if he begged for mercy for failing, the young leader would kill him without hesitation. He was deeply afraid. But Hook Shimsu vowed to succeed this time and promised to do his best not to disappoint the master. He was determined. The leader said he would let it go this last time because they were family, but expected him to do everything right this time. He seemed to have calmed down. Someone was leaping through the trees, moving incredibly fast. They seemed to have an important goal and were determined to achieve it. Hook Shimsu announced the Shadow Squad would lure Poong Cheon as far away as possible. He was orchestrating everything for the plan's success. The twin yin-yang demons were assigned to handle the young cult leader alongside him. They were ready to fight with all their strength to avoid failure. The leader signaled with his hand, directing everyone to take their positions. He was leading the squad, and everything was about to begin. Yugang stood by the window, reflecting that they should remember everything he had said. He appeared prepared for anything. Someone with a bow and arrow seemed to be aiming at something, or someone preparing for a challenging fight. The archer, bow at the ready, declared this was their last chance. The atmosphere was incredibly tense and dangerous. A couple conversed animatedly, and Yugang thought that ordinary love could be found everywhere. He wished he could experience the same happiness. The leader glanced to the side as Sun Yakran teased, asking if the young master swept away wasn't going to bed. She was provoking him once again, her tone mocking. Yugang cursed Poong Cheon, accusing him of forcing him to share a room with that woman. He was furious and losing patience. Sun Yakran retorted that her skin needed proper rest and warned him that if her skin wrinkled, he'd be held accountable. She was annoyed and angry. The leader agreed, saying it was time to sleep in peace. He looked forward to relaxing and forgetting everything. He was exhausted. A spear materialized amidst a strong and fast blue magic aura. The situation grew exceedingly tense and dangerous for the leader. Sun Yakran and Yugang were struck by a powerful force and left in shock. The tension was palpable, and they couldn't comprehend what was happening. Sun Yakran glanced around, confused about the situation, sensing that something was terribly wrong. Various objects floated in the air, leaving Yugang stunned. He hadn't expected it, and the situation was critical. With red eyes, Yugang appeared deeply worried and ready to fight with all his might. He wouldn't let it go easily. Sun Yakran was leaping and dodging numerous arrows. The situation was extremely tense and dangerous for her and everyone around. Yugang prepared to attack, his expression full of fury. He had to end everything as quickly as possible. The woman remarked she was nearly hit and asked what the young man thought he was doing, staring at her. She didn't appreciate it at all. Poong Cheon knelt to protect the leader, reassuring him that he was fine. He seemed deeply concerned and frightened by the unfolding events. The warrior asked if the leader was okay, vowing to handle the enemies. He was resolute in protecting his master at all costs. Poong Cheon declared he would take care of the enemies and urged the leader to remain calm. He was deadly serious and furious about everything. Yugang attacked one of the enemies, demonstrating impressive strength and skill. He wasn't about to let anyone escape the fight. Yugang looked confused, wondering what was happening. He couldn't make sense of the situation, and the tension was overwhelming. The warrior grabbed the leader and told him he needed to deal with the enemies because he was there to protect him with all his strength. Poong Cheon shouted that he couldn't leave the leader in such a dangerous place, warning that he might get hit by arrows and wouldn't be safe. His concern for his master's well-being was evident. Sun Yakan, standing atop the building, screamed furiously that those guys were bastards. She was extremely irritated by everything. The scene shifted to the forest, where the sounds of battle echoed through the area. The situation seemed perilous for everyone present. Poong Cheon struck with his sword powerfully, channeling all his combat skill. The situation appeared critical for the enemies. With all of his might, Poong Cheon attacked, his magic so strong it made everything around him tremble. He was determined to win. The warrior saw someone falling and shouted that he was a bastard, angry and eager to end the fight as quickly as possible. Poong Cheon swung his sword again, his magic surging with strength. Everyone felt uneasy as the intense and dangerous fight unfolded. The warrior unleashed a powerful attack that sent his opponents flying. The battle intensified at that critical moment. The enemies ran through the forest, exclaiming that Poong Cheon was heading their way and they needed to act quickly. Desperation gripped them as they plotted to lure Poong Cheon as far away as possible to allow Hook Shimsu to act. The situation was dire. The twin and yin-yang demons prepared to handle the young cult leader, ready to fight and protect him from all harm. Poong Cheon called them insolent and demanded to know what they were looking at. He was furious and brimming with rage. One of the twin demons questioned why the cult leader was there, confused and shocked by the unfolding events. Hook Shimsu noticed Sun Yakan and the other demons waiting for the cult leader. His worry was evident. Hook Shimsu demanded to know where Poong Cheon had gone, his desperation clear as he sought urgent answers. Sun Yakan replied that he had left and that she had nothing to do with him, seemingly frightened and trying to avoid blame. One of the twin demons remarked that they had failed again and resolved to give their best effort to avoid being killed by their master. The twin demons were deeply worried, anxious about the gravity of the situation. They knew they couldn't fail this time. One of the twin demons bolted out of the area, seemingly in a hurry. He wanted to escape but knew the danger was immense. Hook Shimsu declared there was no point in running and insisted they deal with the cult leader. He braced himself for battle with all his might. The man unleashed a powerful and rapid attack, defeating two enemies with a single blow. He demonstrated his immense strength and combat prowess. Hook Shimsu struck the wall with his power, visibly furious at the situation and everyone in his way. He declared that they were all as good as dead, a tense scene setting the stage for the worst. The situation was critical. Sun Yakan noticed blood on the ground and was terrified. She seemed deeply afraid of what might happen in that place. She questioned if all of this was necessary, lamenting that they had taken the quickest way out. She couldn't believe what was happening amidst the chaos. Sun Yakan remarked that he was as good as dead and accused the demonic cultists of not valuing life. She seemed confused by the situation. She then noticed someone jumping out the window, making a swift escape to avoid danger at all costs. Poong Cheon protected Yugang, explaining that he had only brought him there to witness a bloodbath. He appeared confused and desperate. Yugang observed the ground littered with bodies and wondered who these people were and why they were there. He couldn't comprehend the situation. Poong Cheon identified one of them as Hook Shimsu and the others as the yin-yang twin demons, showing the leader who their enemies were. He repeated their names and emphasized that he had dealt with them, pointing out their identities to the leader. Yugang, perplexed by the battle scene, asked what had happened there. He didn't understand any of it. Sun Yakan dismissed him, telling him not to look at her because she wasn't responsible for any of it. She seemed frightened of the leader's reaction and guilt-ridden. Yugang explained that Hook Shimsu had killed the twins after saying something about their failure. He appeared calm about the situation. He added that they had died before he could question them, but it didn't change the fact they had left him there alone. His frustration was evident. Poong Cheon retorted that if he wasn't listening, there was no way they could bring her along. He was holding a red object, seemingly plotting something. The warrior reassured her to wait patiently because her time would come. Then he tossed a purple potion onto the ground, his demeanor serious. A purple stain spread across the ground, unleashing a powerful force that enveloped the area. The situation became dangerously tense for everyone. Sun Yakan screamed that the corpse was disintegrating instantly. She was shocked and terrified, clearly disturbed by what was happening. Poong Cheon commented that she liked him too much, advising that they leave quickly. He was impatient and in a hurry. Yugang agreed, suggesting they depart immediately. He seemed calm and unconcerned, ready for anything. The leader, the woman, and the warrior departed, leaving behind a trail of purple magic on the ground. The situation remained tense and mysterious for all involved. A piece of paper on the ground read that Yugang was free and that the adventure had ended. The leader seemed to have a new perspective on life. The scene shifted to a carriage passing through a forest, and the leader remarked that you never know what might happen in Jianghu. He appeared quite confused. Yugang said that one could get used to having his neck turned like that. He seemed calm about the whole situation and didn't mind it much. Sun Yakan mentioned that they had been running for 4 days without rest, and that she was going to manage to remove a bottle of oil from the master's hair. He was at the end of his patience. The leader said that she wasn't an easy person to deal with, but that she was angry today. He needed to control himself with her, but he didn't know what to do to calm the situation down. Yugang told the warrior they were heading for a stream and asked him to hold on a bit longer. The young man seemed tired and needed a rest. Yugang said it was easy to talk when someone was getting fresh air and ordered that the carriage be taken to a stream immediately. He was very angry and impatient. The warrior was on top of a ladder while the woman was on the ground. They seemed ready to do something, and there was a tense atmosphere between them. The leader asked the person to identify themselves and inquired about what had happened. He didn't understand what was going on. Yugang was near the door and asked Poong Cheon what had happened. He seemed confused and suspicious of everything. The warrior apologized and looked at the horse, clearly regretful of what had happened and wanting to avoid any more trouble. An older man introduced himself as Sang Pilwom and said he was the administrator of a martial academy in Xi'an. He seemed to be a person of importance. Sang Pilwom explained that one of the wheels of his young mistress's carriage had broken and asked if they could help them. He was requesting assistance. Yugang told the warrior not to harm the innocent and that they would help. He felt an obligation to assist and calm down, appearing different from before. Poong Cheon responded that he was listening and obeying. He accepted the leader's order without complaint and seemed determined to help resolve the situation. Poong Cheon lifted the carriage wheel with great strength, surprising the onlookers with his power. He had an almost surreal strength. The horse had a funny expression, and Yugang observed everything from a hill. He seemed very curious about what was going to happen, and the situation was tense. Yugang said the obstacle was out of the way, but remarked that if they wanted the horse's meat, they would have to go down to get it. He seemed to have plans and was quite mysterious. Sang Pilwong asked if there would be any problem with giving his young mistress a ride, and the leader said it was fine. He also invited him to join them, being very courteous. The young woman introduced herself as Ju Seulbin and thanked the leader's kindness. She was very polite and kind to those around her. Yugang told the lady to enter first, excusing himself. He showed great manners toward everyone and was learning to be a better leader. Ju Seulbin screamed in fright, and Sun Yakan appeared behind her to see what happened. She seemed worried about the young woman's reaction and was trying to control herself. Yugang told Ju Seulbin not to worry, assuring her he wasn't a ghost. He was trying to calm her down and protect everyone there, showing great kindness. Poong Cheon, Yugang, and Sun Yakan sat on a bench, and the leader commented that the young woman was very attractive and would likely capture the hearts of men. He seemed curious to learn more about her. Sun Yakan said she only knew how to say no and that fear had frozen her brain, calling her a huge pain in the ass. Her patience was wearing thin. Yugang thought it would be strange not to be scared and seemed quite intrigued by the situation. He wanted to resolve everything and protect everyone from any harm. The leader thought about how to resolve the awkward atmosphere and looked at Ju Seulbin, who appeared very calm and serene. He was intrigued and curious about the whole situation. Yugang said he was the young leader of the cult and that he wasn't a problem, adopting a very scary expression and a malevolent look. Yugang thought that she could be a member of the assassination squad sent by the cult. He was suspicious and no longer trusted anyone. Ju Seulbin asked the leader to promise he would make a sound so she could speak, saying she would tell everything. She appeared very tense and seemed to be afraid of the leader. Yugang swallowed hard and thought about what the cult scoundrels were plotting. He had a bad feeling and was deeply suspicious of everything. The young woman asked if they had come to kill her, and the leader asked if she was crazy. He seemed to be enjoying the situation. Poong Cheon attacked the young woman, stating she was dangerous and that he couldn't trust her. He was extremely angry and had no patience for her. Poong Cheon had his hand around the young woman's neck, and she screamed in desperation. He used all of his strength to end her life. The young woman's expression was one of desperation, her mouth wide open as the warrior held her neck tightly. She had no chance of survival. Poong Cheon said she was dead and placed his hand on her head. He showed no remorse, remaining very serious about what had just transpired. Yugang asked if she had been poisoned, and the warrior said it had been quicker than pressing a vital point, explaining that Sang Pilwon had done the same. He seemed very prepared. Sun Yakan asked who they were and why everyone near them was killing each other. She was confused and frightened by the entire situation. The woman asked why everyone around them was always killing each other. She was desperate and didn't understand what was happening. Poong Cheon looked out the window, and Yugang said he had mentioned how people around them were always dying. He seemed very confused. The warrior attacked the woman, throwing her aside, and said that he should have knocked her out before she caused a scene, and that he was sorry for that. He was very direct. Yugang asked how he had found out about Sang Pilwon, and he replied that he had asked him 2 questions through sound projection. He seemed very smart. The leader asked which group of the demonic cult they belonged to and who was leading the operation. He seemed very determined to uncover everything. Sang Pilwon was very startled by the question, and his face immediately changed. He seemed very tense and afraid of his master. Yugang said that he had killed himself before doing anything, that he had used bait, gotten an answer, and that he wasn't stupid. He was showing himself to be very clever. Poong Cheon said that he might be strange, but he wasn't stupid, and if they were being tracked without realizing it, something was wrong. He was very suspicious of everything. The warrior agreed with what Yugang said and seemed thoughtful. He wasn't completely sure about what was going on and was suspicious. Yugang was very serious and thoughtful, trying to figure out what was happening. The situation seemed very complex and dangerous. Poong Cheon told the leader that if they were being tracked without him noticing, something was wrong. He was very suspicious and worried about the situation. He Yugang realized that someone had marked him with the smell of 1,000 miles. He was very concerned and seemed to be in trouble. A person was holding a purple potion that caused a scent that only those who mastered the divine tracking art could sense. It was very powerful. The trail of this scent disappeared as soon as someone was marked so that the person wouldn't notice. It was an unparalleled tracking method. They were very intelligent. Yugang agreed with what the warrior said and asked if there was any way to remove the scent. He didn't like the situation at all. Poong Cheon said they could burn the fragrance with the heat of the sun, but the leader would have to endure some pain. He was being very honest. Yugang said he could endure a little pain and told him to go ahead. He was determined to get rid of the problem and didn't want to stay in that situation any longer. The warrior told Yugang to sit and cross his legs. He seemed to know exactly what he was doing. He was going to heal the leader with his power. Poong Cheon started using a very strong red power and the woman began to scream in pain from the reaction. The situation was tense and dangerous. The carriage was moving very fast while everything around was being destroyed. It was the scene of an escape in search of a safe place, far from all those problems. Yugang said he would never do that again and was glad it was only for a moment. He was very angry and irritated by going through that situation. Poong Cheon had his hand on the leader's head and a red power was coming out of his hand. He seemed to be healing the leader, but the pain seemed very intense. Yugang screamed that Poong Cheon had said it would be just a little and called him a bastard, accusing him of lying. He seemed to be suffering a lot. The warrior said it would only be 15 minutes and that the leader had to endure a little more and the pain would pass. He was very serious and seemed not to care about the leader's pain. Poong Cheon said that the leader was a fool and that he was enjoying all of this. He found the leader's suffering funny, which made him very angry. Yugang was suffering and screaming in pain, while the warrior seemed to be enjoying the situation and he didn't know what to do to get out of it. Green arrows rose to the sky with supernatural power. They seemed to be carrying a message or asking for help in some battle. Sang Pilwong was sitting on a stone with a message written, saying to appear in front of him or die. It was a very clear and strong threat. Hook Shimsu said he dared to ridicule. He was very angry and thirsty for revenge. He couldn't wait to get his revenge. Hook Shimsu thought that the orders of the leader of the cult were wrong and that everything was a mess and had gotten out of control. He seemed very frustrated. He said that he should have just killed the young cult leader, that he was seeing blood, and that he would finish off anyone who crossed his path. He was very furious. Hook Shimsu thought that instead of killing Yugang, he should ensure the young leader's freedom. It was too much idiocy for his mind. The man asked since when had the demonic cult become so pious. He was very angry and didn't agree with anything. Hook Shimsu thought that the order had been given and that he couldn't do anything about it. He had to follow his leader's orders. Hook Shimsu called for Hyopio, and the man appeared immediately to see what his master needed. He was very helpful. Hyopio was holding a vial of the purple poison, and a strange symbol glowed in his hand. He was ready to do whatever was necessary. Hook Shimsu mentioned that the young leader had a scent that made him easy to track and warned that he would start following him as part of a prearranged plan. The man instructed Hyopio to go to Shaanxi, report the events, and request reinforcements, with the order to return to the cult once finished. Even with Hyopio's doubt about the decision, the master kept his stern expression, making it clear that he didn't want any questioning. Filled with fierce anger, Hook Shimsu promised that at the right moment, he and Poong Cheon would share a hellish fate. Following superior orders, the man announced that he would find Poong Cheon and pass the necessary instructions to Yugang. Yugang realized that the intense heat around seemed to erase all traces, even the scent that had previously filled the air. The stifled sensation left Yugang unable to grasp what the woman was trying to communicate, fueling his frustration. Yakan observed Yugang lost in thought, curious about what troubled him so much at that moment. She joked about his nervousness, mocking his reaction to danger and making the situation even more uncomfortable. Amid the teasing, Yugang realized that she used sarcasm to hide something deeper, though he still didn't know what. Irritated by her provocations, he began to wonder if she was truly incapable of thinking about anything beyond herself. Despite her carefree tone, she seemed to enjoy how easily she could irritate him. The woman stared at him firmly, questioning his resolve, making it clear she wouldn't back down from the situation. Even while trying to maintain composure, Yugang noticed that her comments were starting to test his patience. It was then that he noticed the tremor in her hands, a sign that all of her confidence was just a mask to hide fear. Recognizing his impulsive behavior, Yugang expressed his regret, trying to ease the tension between them. She, however, didn't let it slide easily and insisted that he be more direct, showing how much she was bothered by empty words. With a touch of sarcasm, she commented on how he should have acted, but seemed to want more than just an explanation. He, still reflective, revealed that his thoughts were focused on a friend involved in a complicated situation. The memory of that friend's powerful family brought to light the fact that he was being pursued because of a family betrayal. In light of this, Yugang pondered the implications and moral dilemma of eliminating or protecting someone who posed a risk. Yakan, more serious, absorbed the details of the story, reflecting on how they could handle the situation. Analyzing everything, she suggested that letting the friend live in hiding didn't seem like a dignified or fair solution. Yugang, absorbing her words, began to consider that maybe there was an alternative he hadn't yet seen. Still, the confusion persisted in his mind as he tried to organize his thoughts and find a logical path. He still wondered how such skilled soldiers had failed, a question that left him restless and suspicious. Sitting together, they shared the weight of doubts, and the silence was almost as loud as the urgency to decide their next step. Yugang reflected on what the woman might be trying to convey, while curiosity and mystery consumed him. Among his thoughts, the idea emerged that she might be hinting at something deeper, something he still didn't understand. With no answers, he began to feel a chill down his spine, as if something bigger was about to happen. Poong Cheon, suspicious and exhausted, decided it was better to take a break, avoiding unnecessary risks. Feeling that he finally understood what was behind the intentions, Yugang began to mentally prepare for what he would face. He silently thanked Poong Cheon, acknowledging how crucial that support had been for him to continue. Determined, Yugang decided he would no longer run away. With a clear objective, he set off, leaving behind doubts and hesitations. Some people were outside laughing and talking while the food was being served, and everything seemed very cheerful and festive. A person served a plate with a stew containing various vegetables and shrimp, and another plate with several dumplings. The food looked delicious. Sun Yakan said it had been a long time since she had seen Poong Cheon learn so quickly. She was happy to see his development and seemed very pleased. The woman told people not to stay by the door anymore and to sit at other tables, while Poong Cheon had a very suspicious look on his face. Yugang told him to wait a minute and had a very serious expression. He had the look of someone about to cause trouble, as if he were planning something. Yugang asked where those warriors were from, and he seemed very intrigued by everything. He was extremely curious. The man replied that they were from the Cloud Tiger clan and that they were famous for their martial arts. He seemed very proud of them. The man told him not to pick a fight with them and reassured him that everything would be fine. He was trying to calm Yugang down and protect him. Yugang said that if they were good at martial arts, that was enough for him. He was planning something and needed their help. He had a goal. Yugang thought they would be able to keep Poong Cheon busy after dealing significant damage to him with his spiritual force. He was planning an attack. Yugang shouted while furiously attacking one of the guards. He was very determined to get what he wanted and wasn't going to give up. Yugang thought he would let them serve as a distraction and then make his escape. All the guards charged at him and he was ready to put his plan into action. Yugang thought that even though the spiritual force could destroy stones, Poong Cheon's body was strong and he would recover quickly. He was preparing himself. Poong Cheon was eating a dumpling and thinking he would recover quickly. He was very calm while Yugang was preparing to attack, seemingly unbothered. Yugang apologized to Poong Cheon and told him not to take it personally before attacking him. He had a very serious expression. Yugang delivered a powerful kick to the warrior's chest, sending him flying. He used all his strength and showed no mercy. Yugang started using a very powerful energy that spread throughout the area. He was using all his strength and power and wasn't going to stop now. Yugang and Sun Yakan were shocked, their mouths agape, seeing the destruction Yugang had caused in the area. They were very frightened by everything. Yugang had his hand on the warrior's body, and it seemed like he hadn't pierced him with his attack. He was very surprised by the situation. Poong Cheon said, "This is bad," with a frightening expression and asked what that cursed body was made of. Yugang was very scared. Poong Cheon and the warrior were surprised when Yugang poked him at the table and asked if he wanted something. They seemed to not understand. Yugang and Sun Yakan were startled by Yugang's attitude and his strength. He seemed very irritated, and they couldn't understand what was happening. Yugang asked if that was the way to ask for something and was very scared about what would happen next. He seemed terrified. Sun Yakan asked since when that counted as a poke and said that Yugang was insane. Yugang shouted that yes, he wanted something because he was too irritated with everything. Yugang shouted that those bastards dared to carry swords in his presence and that they needed to learn a lesson. He was very angry. The warriors asked who Brat was talking about and drew their swords. They were very angry and wanted to end Yugang. Poong Cheon said that if his master had summoned him using spiritual force, it was because he was very angry. He was preparing for the worst. Yugang said to leave everyone alive to learn a lesson, and that if they didn't repent, they would deal with him. He wasn't going to show them any mercy. Poong Cheon said he would obey his master's orders and began preparing for battle. He wasn't going to let him down and was very serious. Yugang said he would make them remember that battle for the rest of their lives and began attacking all the warriors. He wasn't afraid of anyone. Yugang knocked down several warriors and started running away from them. He no longer had time to fight. He needed to escape. One of the warriors was shocked by Yugang's speed and very surprised by everything that had happened in the area. He was confused. Yugang thought it was time to get out of there and that he would escape. He was very determined to achieve his freedom and was in a great hurry. Yugang used a very strong power that caused an explosion everywhere and thanked the Cloud Tiger clan for their sacrifice. He was being very clever. Yugang thought that even if he exhausted his ki, he would go as far as he could while they kept Poong Cheon busy. He was determined to escape. Yugang wondered if he had already reached the outer gate. He was almost managing to escape and he was very confident it would work. Yugang thought he would finally be able to live in freedom and that everything had gone perfectly. He was very happy with how things had turned out. Poong Cheon said that his master's use of the lightness technique was flawless and started chasing him. He wasn't going to let him escape. Yugang was surprised when Poong Cheon touched his shoulder and wondered how he had gotten there so quickly. He was scared. Yugang asked if he had been ordered to take everyone alive. He was very frightened by the situation and knew he was in trouble. Poong Cheon said they were going back. He was very serious and didn't seem happy with what had just happened. He was deep in thought. Poong Cheon thought that they were all dead and had a very serious expression. He didn't like having to kill them. He didn't want to. The warriors apologized for their insolence and said they begged for forgiveness for their transgression. They were very remorseful. Poong Cheon told them to beg for forgiveness and said they didn't deserve to be forgiven for their transgression. He wasn't happy with any of it. He was angry. Yugang thought he had trusted the Cloud Tiger clan to buy him time to escape. He was very frustrated and didn't understand. Yugang thought they shouldn't be asking for forgiveness or punishment. He was very angry and couldn't understand why this was happening. One of the warriors thought he wouldn't bow to a brat like that and planned to attack when Poong Cheon let his guard down. He seemed to be plotting something. Poong Cheon punched the warrior hard in the face and said they didn't deserve forgiveness for what they had done. He showed no mercy. Poong Cheon shouted to show them who the master was while Yugang screamed that he was going to kill everyone and tried to attack. He was very angry and irritated. Yugang was sitting on a tree trunk, trying to calm down while everything was falling apart. He was trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Yugang thought that even the elite of the demonic cult and their spiritual force had been useless against Poong Cheon. He was very scared. Yugang realized he was unable to escape Poong Cheon's grasp and thought that this wasn't like him. He wasn't going to be able to escape. He was in shock. Sun Yakan called the young master and waited for him to say something. She seemed very curious about what he was going to say and had a serious expression. The woman asked if he really wanted to kill Poong Cheon. She seemed very curious about his intentions and what he was planning to do. Yugang said he hadn't aimed at a vital point and that his blade hadn't even scratched him. He seemed very angry and frustrated. Sun Yakan asked if it was because his blade was cheap and looked at him with a mocking face. She was trying to irritate him and seemed to be enjoying herself. Yugang became irritated, grabbed a knife and stared at her. He was thinking about how he was going to kill the warrior and was trying to calm down. Sun Yakan saw the knife, jumped back and screamed in surprise. She hadn't expected him to grab the knife and she was startled by the situation. Sun Yakan wondered if Poong Cheon was a steel monster and how he had such a strong subordinate. She was very surprised and shocked. Yugang asked where she was going with all this and seemed very irritated. He was angry and frustrated and didn't like the direction of the conversation. Sun Yakan asked if he wanted to escape, called him a jerk, and offered to help. She seemed to be enjoying the situation. Yugang asked what she could do to help. He seemed very suspicious of her and didn't trust anyone. Sun Yakan showed an earring and asked what he thought and if he wanted to play with it. She was trying to convince him of something. The woman asked if he wanted to play with the earring and had a very suspicious look. She was trying to persuade him that it was a good idea. Yugang said it seemed very suspicious and asked what it was. He wasn't confident in it at all and was very wary. Sun Yakan said it was a pill that would turn his insides inside out and that he would be able to see many people. She seemed to be having a lot of fun with the situation. Yugang asked if she wanted him to eat that and had a very frightened expression. He didn't understand her goal. Sun Yakan said it would be a wonderful sight, but the pill was for her. She seemed very anxious and determined to take the pill. Sun Yakan told the young master jerk to listen carefully because after she took the pill, he would have to tell Poong Cheon about it. She had a plan in mind. Poong Cheon said she could escape and mentioned using the bushes, telling them to keep an eye on her the whole time. He was worried about the situation and feared she might end up escaping. Yugang said he would go as far as he could and that Sun Yakan would make her escape. He was planning how to flee from Poong Cheon and seemed clever. Sun Yakan thought that Poong Cheon would look for her when they returned and that she would also escape. She seemed very excited about the plan. Sun Yakan said she would keep Poong Cheon occupied for an hour and that she would consume the pill for him because it was so cool. She seemed to be enjoying herself. Yugang said he would be very grateful for that but felt sorry for his rear end. He was worried about what she was going to do and didn't understand her logic. Sun Yakan said to show Poong Cheon what it was like to be betrayed and started laughing. She was planning a betrayal and seemed very excited about everything. Yugang said it was fine and thanks Sun Yakan. He seemed hopeful that their plan would work. He saw no other way out. Sun Yakan said there was no free lunch in the business world and that he would have to buy her a drink later. She always found a way to get what she wanted. Sun Yakan had a very suspicious look on her face and started running her hand over her mouth. She seemed very happy with the situation and eager to put the plan into action. Yugang ran far away while the carriage left, confident that his plan would work. He was in a great hurry to escape. Sun Yakan shouted that nature was calling and asked to stop the carriage. He was in a great hurry and couldn't hold it anymore. She was about to start the plan. Poong Cheon had a very serious look and seemed very suspicious. He wasn't going to fall for Sun Yakan's traps. He was very alert. The carriage wheel started turning and the vehicle began to move away. She was moving very quickly. She was escaping from everyone. Sun Yakan shouted that he had stopped and that now she was going to kill him. She seemed very excited about the plan and very confident. She was very anxious. Poong Cheon was holding the reins and pulling the horses, which started to move. He wasn't naive and distrusted everything. Poong Cheon thought if they believed he would fall for that. He was very angry, very clever, and very attentive to everything. Yugang saw that the situation was dire and shouted for Poong Cheon to stop the carriage. He was desperate about the situation and very scared. Poong Cheon told his master not to fall for her tricks and was very serious. He didn't trust some Yakan and was very alert. Yugang shouted that he didn't understand the seriousness of the situation, that she needed to stop, and that it was an order to stop the carriage immediately. He was desperate. Yugang screamed that it was an order to stop that carriage and had a frightened expression when the carriage started going faster. He was in trouble. Yugang yelled to stop now and began using his strength to stop the carriage. He wasn't going to let her get far. He was determined to succeed. He would get angry while she screamed, telling them to go clean up the mess in the bathroom. At that moment, a heated energy surged in his stomach as she yelled, begging them to stop. At that moment, another arrived, shouting for his master. But from inside the carriage came a scream, and they were already on the other side, with Yugang clasping his hands together. Cheon jumped while apologizing to his master. When he landed on the ground, he said he didn't think he would actually soil himself. An angry Yugang said that he had disobeyed a direct order and would therefore be punished. Behind him, he said it was a necessary step for him to become the Supreme Master. He turned back even angrier, asking if, by chance, to become the Supreme Master in this life, he would have to endure such humiliation. Cheon just turned his head and suddenly bowed, apologizing to his master since, because of him, the situation had become unbearable. Afterward, they had to change carriages. Yakan seemed to have lost her soul, while Yugang thought she had expelled even what she didn't have. But at that moment, she whispered, telling them to try again. Yugang asked what she was talking about. When he saw her, she was gritting her teeth, and he shouted, asking why she was doing all this because of him. Yakan told him to stay quiet while saying that the Sun family never surrenders. At that moment, Cheon opened the carriage door while Yugang shouted for him to get this irrational woman away from him. At the same moment, a slash came toward the wall, and Yakan grabbed his legs, screaming. Cheon, frightening, said this couldn't continue. He needed to eliminate the girl. Hearing this, both were scared. Yugang told him to wait because there was no need to exaggerate like that. It was just a stomachache. She, still clinging on, had already lost hope seeing this scene. Yugang shouted, asking if he was going to disobey another order. After hearing this, Cheon dropped his sword and apologized, saying he would do as ordered. From below, Yugang shouted that it was going to get messy, so he should take her far away. Meanwhile, Cheon jumped with Yakan in his arms. When they left, Yugang took the opportunity to escape to the other side of the forest while thanking Yakan for her brave sacrifice. He thought that if he used the lever technique, Cheon would catch up to him in an instant, so he landed on the ground, saying this place should be sufficient to hide. Later, Cheon passed by, saying the master's tracks ended there. Yugang was listening to everything, hidden under the grass. He heard Cheon wondering where he could be because it was impossible that he had given up being the leader of the cult and fled. Thinking he had been kidnapped, Cheon jumped through the forest. Yugang felt relieved after he left because he needed to remain calm and stay in that place. He kept counting until he reached 20,000 and stood up, thinking Cheon had already left. But when he finished getting up, he was startled because Cheon was standing there, waiting in the bush. Lowering his head, he said that the master would then learn stealth arts. Sweet and cold, he said that in Jianggu, one never knows when they might need it, and said he should have also learned the art of tracking. And since it was over, he bowed and began to walk away because there was still a long road ahead. But from behind, Cheon called out to him. Yugang looked back scared, saying he would need to bow his head. Sweating, he turned without understanding, but Cheon said that the celestial demon had ordered him to be taken to the supreme path, so attempts to avoid this fate were unacceptable because this was already the third time. Yugang realized he had just played dumb the other times and, stuttering, tried to ask if he was being accused. Cheon said that the supreme leader cannot lose trust, so he needs to bow his head. Yugang asked what kind of logic that was since he was the master who gave the orders. Still, Cheon continued telling him to bow his head. He was already furious from hearing this and called him a bastard, but in the end, he bowed his head, saying he intended to do it anyway. Cheon ordered him to repeat with him, "Now I am the leader of the demonic cult, and nothing in this world frightens me." From the ground, Yugang began to speak, but since it was too low, Cheon told him to say it louder. He shouted, cursing that he would be the leader of the cult. Cheon, angry, told him not to curse and to keep doing it. Then he began to speak louder and louder. After a while, it was nighttime in the carriage. Yugang thought that one problem after another was happening because of Cheon, and besides, he remembered the crazy woman asking the cuckold Cheon for help. He had pressed her pressure points, and that left Yakan unable to move. Yugang looked at her, thinking she had suffered a lot too. At that moment, someone said there was a carriage with a broken wheel blocking the path. Outside, a man introduced himself as Woonjang, the assigned guard, asking for help since the carriage had broken down. Yugang saw this, furious because they were doing it again, as the cult members had no creativity. So he told Cheon to do the same as last time. Cheon threw the carriage aside while the two were frightened. The guard asked at least to take the young mistress. When Cheon entered, he simply told her to get in quickly. Inside, there were 3 of them. The woman introduced herself as Wang Yuok and said she was now under his care. Yugang sly looked at her, thinking at least she was polite. Then coldly, he told her to stay quiet if she wanted to live and not throw her life away for such things. She replied that if she were afraid of death, she wouldn't be there. Yugang called her a fool, asking why she thought Cheon let her in. It was to ignite the flame of hope, and one could use it to extinguish it once and for all. But it didn't matter. He just told her not to do that because he knew she had been sent by Sumyeon. On the other side, she spoke, saying she loved him, and that's why no risk mattered. Yugang was startled just hearing that. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.